Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, InaneDragon, and I've been sitting here spinning my wheels and dealing with decision paralysis. What should I do for my first video? How could I start the current year off strong? As with most things, the answer came to me in a tweet. It's indirect, but for the first time, someone gave me a video to respond to. I have no shame. I'll take it. Now, the thing of this is, nearly every sentence of this video can and will be rebutted. No, not everyone will accept the refutation, but that's life for you. Good thing the original video is less than 2 minutes long. Let's hear what he has to say.
Who made God?
The current best evidence indicates that man made God in various incarnations over the course of millennia. Even you would agree that every god you don't believe in is a human invention. If the overwhelming majority aren't real, what are the odds that yours is? 1 in 10,000? Even lower? Statistically, if you agree that all other gods are false, yours most probably is too. Unless you've got some evidence. Perchance.
Most scientists, whether they are religious or non-religious scientists, agree that space, matter, and time all had a beginning.
Well, no, they don't all agree to that. They agree that there's an event at the very first moment of our universe known as the Big Bang. Whether space, matter, and time, in some form or fashion, existed prior to this point is up to speculation and debate. Amongst the more interesting ideas are that we live in what amounts to one iteration of a cyclical expansion, heat death, and collapse of an infinitely existing series of universes. In this case, the start of time and space in our universe would merely be that, the start of our universes, time and space. Alternately, what we perceive as the beginning of the universe may be just the beginning of the expansion of the portion of the universe that's visible to us. Remember, the speed of light is a limit to how far we can see. Since it would appear that our region of space has existed for about 13.6-ish billion years, we can't see what's happening 20 billion light years away. There might be a whole nother universe over there, separated by nothing more than space. And that universe may be older than ours, even. See, the scientists have a lot of ideas, and not a lot of answers yet. Most of these hypotheses are next to impossible to test at our current state. So, for now, they're just speculative. Like string theory, which is yet another different answer than what you think the consensus perspective is. What you really don't like in all this, I think, is the fact that the rational answer is we just don't know.
The question is, who or what is the cause of that beginning?
Okay, I know I'm falling into the trap of response videos by pretending that you're listening and can hear me and respond. I don't care. I'm just going to get called a clone of somebody sooner or later anyways. With luck, it'll be, Top Hats and Champagne, or perhaps Beware of Darkness. Those are some cool hipsters. So, here goes. Didn't you hear me? I said there may not be a beginning, and we don't know. And to add to that, to claim you do know is to commit the sin of hubris. Who are you, O prideful one, to tell us you are privileged to information that has escaped those who have dedicated their lives to finding the answers to these questions? There's a certain irony to how all of you apologists tend to commit one or more deadly sins in the defense of your religion.
Atheists will say, well, the universe began with the Big Bang.
No, atheists don't necessarily say that. Researchers who have spent their entire lives studying how the observable universe came into being will say that there is an overwhelming body of evidence which strongly supports the theory that the first event in our observable universe was the rapid expansion of space itself, along with all of the matter that exists within that space. That theory being the Big Bang Theory, and a fair few atheists just happen to end up agreeing with the experts in this field of study. See again about you being prideful. It just so happens that knowing the evidence for this theory in all of its particulars seems to have the effect of producing atheists. As a result, a fair few atheists are also proponents of the Big Bang Theory. Atheists don't necessarily believe or say anything other than, I don't believe in a God. It's almost The same thing that you would say to a Muslim as a Christian. I don't believe in your God. One teeny tiny word of difference. You should try learning what atheists and scientists think and say before you make further videos on what atheists and scientists think and say. You seem to be painfully sheltered on the topic.
But then you would have to ask, can nothing create something?
That's an interesting, valuable, and not at all correct question to ask. Why isn't it the correct question to ask in response to the Big Bang Theory? Because we don't know whether or not there was nothing here before the Big Bang. We just know that what we see now wasn't here. Our best measurements show that shortly after the Big Bang, the entire observable universe consisted of a massively dense but insanely small area which contained all matter and energy and continued a rather rapid expansion until eventually it looked like what we can see around us today. I know the religious hate the phrase, "we don't know," but I find that to be a far more interesting and useful phrase than just pulling shit out of your ass to satisfy your desire to have an answer to the question. Besides, God is a dead end. You say God did it, there's nothing more to do. God did it, you're done. No further line of inquiry, no new science, no new technology, no fucking space shuttle if we just said God made a moon out of cheese. Whether or not the question is correct in this context, it is an interesting question. And the best answer I can give is, go learn quantum physics. That something comes from nothing seems to be an inherent quality of nothingness when we observe it. On this subject, I'd recommend Lawrence Krauss's excellent book, A Universe from Nothing, linked down in the description.
You see, there is no scientific evidence that nothing can create something. In fact, nothing creates nothing.
As counterintuitive as it sounds, science currently suggests, to my knowledge we don't have enough evidence to say proves, that nothing always creates something. It's also important to note that the total mass energy of the universe is zero. So, from an external perspective, we are very literally nothing. We only look like something because we're on the inside of that nothingness. It's a painfully difficult concept to grasp and wrap your head around, I know, but it's supported by the evidence and science as we currently understand it. Which means you should be really careful before asserting that nothing produces nothing, or that we are even something in a sense that has any meaning in physics. And the origin of the universe is definitely a question of physics. So it's meaning in physics about which we should be caring.
But as Christians, we believe that nobody made God, because God is the uncreated creator of the universe.
This is called the cosmological argument for God, and it will get its own video in Inane Explanations, because there's a lot of ground to cover on this one. For now, if we're going to apply scientific principles to the Big Bang Theory, we should hold you to them as well when you make a claim. What is your evidence that nothing created God? Or that God created anything? Or there is a God? Your belief isn't enough for anyone who isn't you. Further, there is a heap of evidence from science to disprove the hypothesis that the biblical God is real. Mind you, I'm not necessarily saying the Christian God. All evidence I've seen is that you guys haven't worshipped the biblical God for centuries. Check out God, the most unpleasant character in all fiction by Dan Barker, and see if you really want to embrace that biblical God. But that's, again, a subject for another video or two. For now, we'll stick to the principles of science and simply say that you've produced a hypothesis about the nature of the universe. What is your evidence for it? And what predictions can we make from this hypothesis? If you don't have an answer to that, then you don't have a belief that is based on facts or reason.
Genesis chapter 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Therefore, space, matter, and time began with God. No, that's not how any of this works. You don't get to just make assertions without evidence. Moreover, let's look at the rest of Genesis chapter 1. We have the earth created before the sun and stars.
which doesn't fit with the data available for stellar formation or the fact that without stars to generate heavier elements, we can't form a planet with an iron core, which Earth happens to have. We have light, night, and day all created before there's a sun or moon or stars. How the hell do you have night and day before you have a sun to heat the fucking side of the Earth that is facing it? Plants before the sun? Again, I don't think you know how any of this works. A giant dome of water hovering over the Earth. Actually, on closer reading, since the stars and the sun and the moon are all in the sky and the waters are above the sky, there's a giant dome of water above the fucking stars and the fucking sun. That's right, our universe, not our planet, is surrounded by a dome of water that came crashing down across the light years during Noah's flood, a little later on in the same fucking book. We've got birds, land animals, and fish all appearing at the same time in relatively their current form, even though the fossil record disproves this a billion times before Sunday. We have domesticated animals being created alongside their wild cousins, even though we can prove the dates of domestication for every major domesticated animal and show their wild ancestors predating them in the fossil record. This is recent enough. We can even carbon date the remains, people. This is not up for debate. The closest thing the Bible gets to being right in the first chapter is the late introduction of mankind into the scheme of things. Though even that's wrong, because mankind didn't rule over the earth for millennia to come after the initial evolution of our species. Worse still is that domesticated animals were created before humans existed to domesticate them. The Bible describes the initial starting conditions as having vegan tyrannosaurs, unless dinosaur fossils are supposed to be a trick of the devil, as well as vegan lions. Yeah, they don't have a digestive system or teeth to eat plants. Every lion would have literally starved. Even as allegory to explain the origins of the universe and life on Earth to an extremely stupid human, this is so fucking wrong it should have been thrown out. Yet a perfect God inspired this. Was he high? Even a mediocrely competent biology teacher can teach someone who's completely ignorant a better understanding of the beginning of life on Earth than the Bible. God is worse than your worst biology teacher. If you pick up any book that claims to contain the truth, and almost every sentence in the first chapter were demonstrably false, would you keep reading? That's an honest question. I don't understand how anyone can understand the science and the evidence that we have seen in the world and make it past Genesis 1. Still a believer.
Meaning that God is the uncaused first cause. So God didn't have a beginning because he is eternal. God didn't have a beginning because he exists outside of time. In fact, God created time. So who made God? Nobody made God. God is the uncaused first cause. God is the uncreated creator.
You're still here? Fucking hell. Okay. First of all, most of this is a circular argument. You say God is the uncaused cause because God created everything, therefore he had no cause, therefore he was uncaused, therefore God created everything. You haven't justified any of the claims. They just hang there depending on each other to be true. And second of all, what do you mean God is outside time? If we're talking about the biblical God, I don't have to leave the book of Genesis to disprove this claim. Genesis 1. God acts in real time to create the universe over the course of 6 days. Genesis 3. God acts in real time to walk through the Garden of Eden, existing physically in the physical world subject to time and space. I could stop here. You can't be outside time and space and be inside it as well. Genesis 3. Again, God is ignorant of the actions of the snake, Eve, and Adam, and is surprised by their behavior. He is reacting to the world as events happen, with absolutely no appearance of already knowing that it has happened. He is an agent acting in time with everyone else. Genesis 4. God is propitiated by sacrifices as they happen in real time, and is unaware of what happened to Abel until his interaction with Cain. Genesis 6. God experiences regret, revealing that he did not know in advance that mankind would become wicked, and he would therefore have to commit a mass genocide of, to round it up, 100% of the world population. Genesis 9. God needs a reminder in the form of the rainbow forming after storms to remember not to drown all of mankind in a future flood, indicating that his memory is imperfect and his experience with time linear. Genesis 18. God walks upon the earth in physical form to find out what's happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. As such, he exists inside time and space and again is not all-knowing. He has to experience events sequentially as he's physically present. He's not all-knowing, he's not omnipresent. He's got to fucking take on the body of a person who can have a dinner with Abraham. Yes, these are metaphorical according to modern theologians, except to the 40-some-odd% of Americans who are young Earth creationists, and really anybody who accepts anything out of Genesis. And if you don't actually believe in the patriarch Abraham, the creation of the universe, or any other foundational stories in the Bible, why do you accept the rest of it? If Adam and Eve are metaphorical, why isn't God? The thing is, I could keep going on demonstrating time and time again that the God of the Bible explicitly exists inside of time and space according to the teachings of his own holy book, which he is said to have at a minimum inspired. If you can set aside as allegory or metaphor the stories that are blatantly false, why are you holding on to the rest? And how do you know what's true in a book filled with so much falsehood and blatant contradiction? I'm InaneDragon, and I honestly hope that you've had some fun with this video. Especially you, Inspired Walk. I hope you make a response. I'd be genuinely interested in honest answers to the questions I've raised about your claims and the spurious nature of their foundational document. And if you've enjoyed my inanity, please consider subscribing for more. You know the rest of the routine involving liking, commenting, and following me on social media such as Minds.com and Twitter. If you want to be a fool parted from their money, please consider becoming my patron on Patreon. I've tried to make it worth your while, above and beyond ensuring that I can keep making more videos. Thank you all, and have a good night.